Yakuza. Now, that may sound like gibberish to you and me, but in Japan, it actually means quite a lot. For starters, Yakuza is a worthless hand in a Japanese game called Zanmai. It's similar to blackjack, but instead of the winning hand being 21, it's 19. Now, Yakuza means 893. That's the direct translation from Japanese. And you can see 8 plus 9 plus 3 is 20, so it makes sense why in a game you're trying to add to 19, Yakuza would be a bad hand. But it's also a Japanese word. Yakuza is one word that means good for nothing. Worthless hand, good for nothing. You can see the correlation there. But it's also a word used to describe members of mafia organizations in Japan. So anything related to the Japanese Mafia, they call the Yakuza. And as it so happens, if it wasn't for the Yakuza, Nintendo as we know it may not have existed. That's right. Nintendo, the family-oriented gaming company, once tailored to the Yakuza, as they were Nintendo's biggest clients in the early 20th century. Now wait a minute, you're probably wondering. The NES didn't come out until 1986. That was definitely not the early 20th century. Well, you'd be right. While most of America was going to the theaters, going to see Back to the Future, Nintendo wasn't really a part of the American lingo. But over in Japan, they had already made waves with a taxi company, a love tester game that gauges couples' compatibility, and cornering the illegal gambling market with Japanese playing cards called Hanafuda. Now, Hanafuda, literally flower cards because most of the cards have depictions of flowers on them, is a form of karuta. Karuta is a Japanese word that comes from Portuguese, carta meaning card. Now in 1543, the first year, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. 1543, Portugal, does any of this connect back to video games somehow? The answer to that question is yes it does, just not in the way you think. Now, in 1543, Portugal became the first European country to visit Japan, landing in the southern port city of what is now known as Nagasaki. Hold on, Nagasaki? You mean the city that the US bombed during World War II? As a matter of fact, I do. And the Portuguese were the ones that founded the city when they landed there in 1543. Now, the trade relationship between Japan and Portugal heavily influenced Japanese culture. Japanese dishes like tempura and castanhas actually derived directly from the Portuguese. And the Portuguese had introduced Japan to playing cards. Additionally, with Japan having been cut off from the Asian trade market, the relationship with Portugal worked as a perfect mediator for the Japanese to get much needed goods from China. But this video is about the history of Nintendo, not the 16th century Asian trade market. So let's kind of just fast forward through the next 3.5 centuries. I do want to go back and point out that in the 13th century, Japan had actually banned gambling in all forms due to the rise of crime from bakuto or professional gambling. And during this time period, the punishment for gambling was death. Now, of course, even with these strict laws, this didn't completely eradicate gambling in Japan. And so in 1718, that's right, we're flashing forward all the way to 1718, Japan decided to expand on its gambling laws, defining and legalizing light betting. And with Western influence in the 19th century, gambling, both legal and illegal, took on new heights in Japan. Now, during the 16th century, when Japan had completely closed its borders to the outside world, the Japanese government had actually banned playing cards in Japan. They knew playing cards were a medium for gambling, and the Japanese government was never fond of gambling, and they would continue to limit the use of playing cards within the country. Enter cement worker Fusajiru Fukui. In 1886, Japan once again tried to place harsh bans on gambling, but admittedly, they allowed Hanafuda cards because Hanafuda cards did not have depictions of numbers and were just flowers and animals. Fusajiru, whose new family name was now Yamauchi after being adopted by Naoshichi Yamauchi in 1872, saw a new business opportunity and in 1889 opened the first Hanafuda shop in Japan called Nintendo Kopai. The word Kopai is very similar to Karta. Kopai just means playing card. And there's much contention as to the origins of the word Nintendo, but it's widely believed that Nintendo means leave luck to heaven, as one tends to do when gambling. Well, with gambling mostly outlawed and heavily taboo throughout Japan, and with only one place to legally obtain playing cards of any kind, Yamauchi found the Yakuza to be his biggest clientele. Nintendo quickly monopolized the playing card market and helped grow the illegal gambling market in Japan. Suddenly, in 1907, the Japanese government passed the Penal Code, also known as Law No. 45, which helped shape modern criminal law in Japan. Now, Article 186, Section 2 of the Penal Code states that a person who, for the purposes of profit, runs a place for gambling or organizes a group of habitual gamblers shall be punished by imprisonment not less than 3 months, but not more than 5 years. Now, the change in this law didn't slow down Nintendo's business at all, and as a matter of fact, Yamauchi opened another shop in Osaka, and soon enough, Nintendo Hanafuda cards were being distributed all throughout Japan. I even have a set of my own Nintendo licensed Hanafuda cards. Now, Nintendo saw great success for the next 20 years, until in 1929 when a dilemma struck Yamauchi. He wanted to retire, but he had no sons to name as heir to Nintendo. Alright, hold on, I hate to interrupt again, but what about Hiroshi Yamauchi? I mean, the late president of Nintendo, he was like super rich and super famous. He's part of the same family, isn't he? Well, that's right, and as a matter of fact, Nintendo would stay in the Yamauchi family until 2002. But it was Nintendo's second president's recklessness that almost sent the company out of business, only to be saved by an unknown janitor. In my next video, I will cover Nintendo's transition from playing card company to video game company. So make sure you're subscribed and don't forget to tick that notification bell so you don't miss that. I also post fun gameplay clips over on my Instagram, so make sure you're following me on Instagram at SedateCyanic. I'm working on skits for my TikTok, so you can follow me on TikTok at SedateCyanic. Keep up to date with me on Twitter at SedateCyanic. I make it real easy by being at SedateCyanic across all platforms. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I did a lot of research to make this video happen, so if you got here, click the like button, and don't forget to comment below. What was the most interesting fact that you learned from my video that you didn't know before about Nintendo? Comment that down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Hey guys, a quick disclaimer. I want to point out that in 2021, a document was leaked that showed that Nintendo actively avoids relationships with companies that have ties to the Japanese Yakuza. This makes sense because their brand image has changed over the last 120 years. They don't want to be associated with the Yakuza. Totally makes sense. Also, I do want to point out, I'm not a representative of Nintendo when I say this, but Nintendo does not condone illegal activities of any kind that includes gambling. And I just want to add, if someone you know, or maybe you struggle with gambling, I'm going to put some free resources in the description below. I love you guys. Again, thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good things. Follow me on all the socials. Bye.